to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is week 14 of Tuesday Night Talks. It's been an amazing journey so far here. Myself, I'm Matt Elkin. I'm here with Scott Martin. We're here from West Coast Elite Basketball and Attitude of Gratitude Consulting, and we're really excited to welcome everybody here. We have three amazing speakers tonight, and this is our second session where we are having recruiting coordinators, top assistant coaches from some high academic schools join us to talk about their program. So we're really, really excited to have all three of our coaches on tonight. Real quick, right before we get started, just want to share my screen. We're running our all academic basketball 2020 circuit. You know, I know it's been a really challenging time and a lot of the things have been kind of put on hold, but we do have plans to be up and running, and our first event is going to be actually a week from yesterday and today in Chicago. So we're really excited about that event. We'll be running events, as you can see, in Utah, California, the Pacific Northwest, and Vegas, and then we'll continue to expand this schedule as the year goes along. But if anybody that's on this call is from the Midwest or is interested in coming to Chicago, we still have a few spots available. So please feel free to reach out to myself or Scotty, or check us out on allacademicbasketball.com. And we're hopeful that you guys will be able to make it. But part of why we're here tonight is to speak to some great coaches from some amazing schools. And we're really excited to kick it off with a good friend of mine from Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, Babson College, Coach Andrew Habermehl. Welcome.
How are you doing tonight, Matt?
Really, really happy to have you on, man. Andrew's been coaching at a high level for a very long time. I've gotten to know him really well, and he's always on the road. Feel like everywhere I'm at, he's there. And he's got a great energy about him and does a phenomenal job on the court and off the court as well. So we're really excited to have you with us tonight, Andrew, and appreciate you staying up with us on the East Coast. So for some of the people that are on the call, players and parents tonight, give us a little bit of background about kind of your journey and kind of what got you to Babson College.
Yeah, definitely. So I graduated high school in 2006. I went to a public high school just outside of Boston, like Matt was saying, Newton North. We were probably, I'm a little biased, but we were probably the last powerhouse public high school program in the Northeast. We won back-to-back state championships, lost one game over 2 years, and we had 3 Division I players on our team, which in the Northeast is especially rare, public high school now, with everybody going to prep schools. So we had Anthony Gurley, who started out at Wake Forest. He ended up at UMass. Corey Lowe, who ended up at Boston University. And then Alexis Mondo, who also played at UMass. And so, fast forward 3 years, I was going into my senior year of college. I was looking for a way to get my foot in the door in a basketball world. And Corey, like I said, was at Boston University. I was going to school about, half an hour north of Boston. And BU had just let go of Dennis Wolf, and they hired Pat Chambers, who's now the head coach of Penn State. And I had some friends in the athletic department already at BU that kind of gave me a heads up of when Pat was going to be coming on campus. And I basically grabbed him and Orlando Vandross, who's now an assistant at UVA, in the parking lot outside of Case Gymnasium on Babcock Street in Boston, and gave him my 30-second elevator pitch of, I'm pretty good with computers, pretty good, around the athletic department. And I know Corey, who, I'm more than happy to do the typical GA stuff with babysitting the high-profile players. And that was kind of enough of a sales pitch to get my foot in the door there. And we were really lucky. Our first year, we won 21 games. We made it to the CBI. We ran into TCU in the semifinals in Richmond the year before they went to the Final Four. And that was kind of a buzzsaw game for us, but it was a great experience. And then the following year, we were able to parlay that into joining the NCAA tournament, where we played Kansas in the second round when they saw the Morris twins. And, to win an American East Championship and go, to the NCAA tournament out in Tulsa was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience, for a 22-year-old, 2 years into college basketball. Pat parlayed that into the Penn State job. Joe Jones was hired at BU, and he's still head coach at BU, and he kept me around. I don't know why, but to this day, he always, asked me what was I thinking, but he did. And, we were able to have another great year, finished second in the American East that year, I believe. And, just did a great job and was able to learn a lot from a lot of different coaches in a short span of time at that level, which was fantastic for me selfishly. I went from there back to Endicott College, which is my alma mater. And the reason for that was kind of, I was in a basketball operations type of role at the Division I level. And I knew that I wanted to be out on the road recruiting, be on the floor and actually coaching, and just be, a basketball coach as opposed to somebody that was just, around and doing the video stuff and not as involved in the actual, coaching itself. So I took a leap of faith, went back to my alma mater, worked for Phil Rowe for 2 years. My first year we won 9 games, which, at the time was kind of a kick in the gut for me because all I had known up to that point was winning. But it was a great opportunity because Phil wanted to, build a program back up to an NCAA tournament team like they had before. And so basically, let me loose on the road and threw me in the deep end and told me to go out and get players. And lucky for me, I was able to convince, 6 guys that became the all-time winningest class in school history to come to Endicott. Year 2 at Endicott, we won, I think, 18 games, something like that. Year 3, we were an NCAA tournament team again. Year 3 was a great jumping off point for me because, like I said, we were down to the NCAA tournament, and the Babson Beavers had just gone to the Final Four that year as well. And so their assistant coach left to go back to his alma mater. He and I were really good friends. He sent me a text message literally as I was driving home one day. I pulled over on the side of 128 in the breakdown lane. I sent an email to Coach Brennan, who didn't really know me all that well, other than just having seen me on the road to tell him what Matt was saying. Everywhere he went, he always saw me. So even though we didn't really know each other, he recognized my name and my face when I reached out to him, I guess. And, 3 weeks later, I was basically the full-time assistant at Babson College, which was a great opportunity for me. They had the first team All-American, 2-time Conference Player of the Year coming back, and Joey Flannery and going into his junior year. So it was the right time to be there, for me. And I was able to, get my feet wet with a really good group of guys. Early on, we went to the Sweet 16 my first year there, and then the second year there, we won the national championship in 2017. So wow. That's kind of the, Cliff Notes version of my journey to where I am today. But it's been awesome. I just finished up year 5 at Babson. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, and Babson is, I'm sure we'll get into it. It's a great part of just outside of Boston, and it's a great school. So obviously you kind of talked a little bit, and we'll get more into the basketball side of it, but tell us a little bit about Babson and what the college has to offer in terms of academics.
Yeah, let me throw up this slideshow we've got.
Yeah, perfect.
Here. There we go. Cool. So, Babson is a really unique school. It's different than, probably 90% of the other schools that have been on calls like this with you guys, in the sense that we are a business-only school. And I kind of put quotes around the only part because that kind of puts us in a pigeonhole that might not necessarily be fair. But that's what we're known for. And every student that graduates from Babson graduates with a degree in business. And the hallmark of the Babson education is the idea that we want all of our students to become entrepreneurial leaders. And that means, not necessarily that they have to go be the next, the next great entrepreneur, the next Elon Musk or whatever, and go out and start a business, from the ground up, but more so that it's a mindset in terms of problem solving that we want all of our students to have. So when they graduate, whether they go work for a Fortune 500 company or they go work for their family business, they're able to conquer ideas with a different mindset than maybe somebody that has a more traditional liberal arts education. One of the things that I always talk about with families is a lot of corporate CEOs these days, they not only have their MBA, but they're also getting their law degree. So there's a lot of carryover in terms of the problem solving techniques that you learn in law school into the business world. And likewise, we look at the entrepreneurial leadership as, just a different way to set yourself apart in the job market, because you're going to be able to go into those interviews and you're going to be able to identify problems and come up with creative solutions in a unique way. The other real hallmark of Babson in the last decade has been, working on solving global societal problems. And obviously, in the last 6-7 months, society's become a lot more active in terms of people wanting to be involved with these, different causes and, working for social justice or whatever it may be. And that's been, like I said, a real hallmark of our education for over the past decade. that we continue to incorporate into a lot of our learning opportunities on campus. So even though I said, we're a business-only school, we have 27 different concentrations within business, and you can choose up to 2 of them as part of your curriculum. And, like I said, there are 27 of them, and they can vary from traditional business fields like accounting or finance or marketing and real estate into things that you might not necessarily think of as business, like environmental sustainability or technology, entrepreneurship, and design. We have a bunch that fall under the quote-unquote liberal arts umbrella. You can do legal studies, you can do history, political science, stuff like that as well. So, like I said, I don't want to pigeonhole us as a business-only school. The line I usually use with families is, unless you want to be a doctor, a teacher, a fireman, something like that, then you're going to be able to take what you learn at Babson and apply it into your day-to-day life. And we talk about ourselves as coaches a lot, in the sense that even though we are basketball coaches, 90% of our job falls under the business umbrella. A lot of what we do is what we're doing right now, which is, a variation of sales and marketing. This morning, Coach and I spent a 2-hour Zoom call talking about our budget for the upcoming year and how we're going to allocate our funds and stuff like that. We have to keep track of all of our accounting, all that stuff. So there's a lot of carryover into all these different parts of the world that you might not think of off the top of your head when you think of business. So that's something that we always try to drive home. In terms of the actual curriculum itself, we have this signature class, Foundations of Management Entrepreneurship, that I always like to talk about. It's a really unique experience at Babson. It's, I always say it's a one-of-a-kind course around the world. Like, I've never heard of another school that has an offering like this, especially for freshmen. But essentially, it's a year-long class. It's 40 students per section, but we have 2 professors per section, as well as 2 peer mentors, which are going to be juniors or seniors that have already completed the course. So really, it's still a 20-to-1, 10-to-1 ratio if you want to count the mentors in that group that everybody always keys in on when they're looking at schools, especially small Division III liberal arts type schools. And basically, the first week of school, you come in, you get put into a group, and you guys start coming up with different business ideas. And there can be anything from like an app you want to develop to a service you want to provide on campus or in the community to a product you want to sell. Really, the sky's the limit in terms of what the actual thing that you want to do is in terms of the business. And it turns into a Shark Tank, 2 or 3 weeks in, where you actually go up in front of the class and you present your idea to the group. You get either the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and they keep on going until they really get a refined idea that that people can get behind. And at that point, you're actually going to write a business plan for this business. You're going to present it to a board of professors, and the school's actually going to give you a grant of between $3,000 and $4,000. Wow. So, going into Thanksgiving break, you have the seed money. You actually have to go to Bank of America or Chase or whatever, open up an account, put the money in there, and then you're going to run that business through the duration of the year from that point forward. And like I said, whether it's an app or a service or a product, like, you actually have to develop it, you have to sell it to customers, you have to do all the little things that go into running a business. And then at the end of the year, you close up shop, whatever profit you make, and you should be making a profit. We're a business school after all. Whatever profit you make, you're going to donate to a social cause of your choice, whether it's the local food bank or a national organization, whatever it is, just to kind of incorporate everything that we talked about earlier between the entrepreneurial leadership and also the social justice aspect of our education. And the thing that I really love about the class is that not only is it something that everybody goes wow when they hear about it, but it's an experiential learning opportunity that really helps you decide what it is about business that you can see yourself doing for the next 40 years of your life. So I always hark back to, when I was going through college, I had tons of friends that switched majors between their sophomore or junior year, or going into their, senior year after they had done their internship that summer. They were like, I really don't want to do this for the rest of my life. But they'd already devoted, time and resources to pursuing that career path. Whereas for us, your freshman year of college, you have to do a little bit of accounting. You have to do a little bit of marketing. You have to do a little bit of supply chain management. You have to do a little bit of the finance portion of it. So you get to figure out kind of early on in a real world experiential environment what it is that you enjoy and what it is that you don't enjoy. So I can't tell you the number of times you have a guy come in who's like, I want to do accounting, and then they do accounting for their FME project, and they're like, I never want to see that Excel spreadsheet ever again. But that's good to know as a freshman. And now as a senior, when you're actually, the time has come for you to get that job, and it's something you don't want to end up doing. So it's a really unique opportunity, and that experiential learning really carries through, all of your classes at Babson as you delve into your concentrations, whatever it may be, as a sophomore, junior, and senior. Um, I always like to show this. This is the Cutler Center for Finance. So it just kind of drives home the experiential learning portion of, our curriculum. So if you are interested in finance, you're coming into college and you're like, I want to go play, stockbroker for the next 40 years and make a ton of money and be like the guys on Billions on Showtime. And you want to, do that. Well, you come to Babson and you get to go to the Carleton Center for Finance for your classes. You actually get to learn how to use a Bloomberg terminal. You actually get to learn how to manage a portfolio and buy and sell stocks. And so when it comes time to be a sophomore going into your junior year, and it's time to start getting those internships to set you up for that job, in finance, well, you can go into those interviews talking about things that you have done experientially, as opposed to just being, hey, I go to this really great school, I'm gonna have this really shiny diploma, and I know all the theory behind things. Well, a Babson student actually knows how to execute the job, hit the ground running in their internships and their jobs when they graduate, which is why our return on investment is so great. In terms of the school itself, like Matt said, we're located just outside of Boston, which personally I love. It's a suburban campus with access to the largest college town in America. I mean, you might not know another kid coming to Babson, but I can guarantee you that you know somebody that's from Northeastern, Harvard, DC, BU, or any of the other smaller Division III schools in the city. So even though, we're located 10 miles away in a nice suburb, you can hop on the T, which is our trolley system. You can hop on the commuter rail, you can take an Uber, you can take a Lyft. All 4 years of college, you're allowed to have a car on campus. So it's really easy to get in and out of the city and take advantage of all that the city has to offer. On the flip side, you get to come back to a nice suburban campus at night as opposed to being downtown and having to deal with, living downtown in a major metropolitan area. The school itself is about 2,300 students, a little bit more now, about 600 kids per class now in terms of incoming freshmen, and 80% of our students live on campus. The caveat with that is, student athletes are pretty much 100% on campus, and the school as a whole is about 35% international. And the majority of the kids that live off campus are the international students that are living in downtown Boston, and they're doing kind of the reverse commute out to the suburbs for school every day. In terms of our neighborhood, across the street we have Wellesley Country Club, which I think has about a 70-year waiting list to become a member. And within, a stone's throw of our campus, Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, and Gordon Hayward are all residents. So that kind of gives you an idea of the type of community that we're within. And like I said, the return on investment and all that stuff, you come to Babson, you're going to get a job. You're going to get a job that pays you really well. And 99% of our students are employed or they're within or they're enrolled in grad school within 6 months of graduation. So it's a degree that's definitely, worth what you're paying on the front end. On the right, you can see it's, one of our recruiting graphics, but we have a top 25 average starting salary of almost $70,000 a year. We have a degree with a 20-year return on investment of over, almost $750,000. So, like I said, it's a degree that's going to pay you back over the course of your career. In terms of the admissions process, our admissions rate is about 26%. And you can see, the average SAT score, if there is such a thing, is, between 1330 and 1490. The ACTs are, 30 plus for the most part. That being said, this year is the first year that Babson's been test optional because obviously with COVID, kids haven't been able to test so far, this spring or this summer. And, most kids obviously test multiple times to get their highest possible score. That's obviously been kind of a issue with everything going on in the world. So we are test optional right now in terms of our men's basketball program. Like a lot of these other schools, we're able to work with admissions to support, candidates that we think can positively impact the community, not just through sport, but also through, being a positive citizen within the campus community. So we have a little bit of leeway in terms of the scores and whatnot, but that's the typical profile, if you will. In terms of the fun stuff, the basketball stuff, we've been to 5 of the last 7 NCAA tournaments. In 2014, they went to the NCAA's, 2015 Final Four, 2016 Sweet 16, 2017 national title. And then this past year, we went back to the NCAA's. I think we would have had a pretty good run if we didn't have our starting point guard playing with a torn calf and the flu, and our starting center with a tore his ACL in January. So with a healthy team, I think we would have had a good shot. But either way, it wouldn't have mattered since after the Sweet 16, all the games got canceled anyway. So it is what it is with that, I guess. But this is our facility. We're really blessed. The school did a $52 million expansion to our facility that opened up fall of last year. And that's really been a game changer for us. So in the top left corner, you can see our varsity weight room area. So that's just to support our 22 varsity athletics teams. And it's great for us. We've got the 7 power racks. We've got the turf mobility area. It's literally right off the gym. You can see the floor peeking over in the top right corner of that photo. And for us, if you have a 16-man roster with 7 power racks, it's basically 2 guys per rack. You can get in and you can get out really efficiently with a good workout. And it's all state-of-the-art equipment. And Matt knows this. He worked at Northeastern. I worked at BU. Facility-wise, I would put that up against a lot of, low major, mid-major schools in terms of what their basketball teams get when it comes to strength and conditioning. But beyond just, the shiny equipment and all that stuff, where we're really lucky is we have 3 strength and conditioning coaches. One of them's full-time and 2 of them are part-time. At the Division III level, that's kind of rare to have 3 people on campus devoted just to strength and conditioning. For instance, when I was at Endicott College, our head strength coach, one of my best friends came to my wedding, he was our head men's soccer coach. So in the fall, when we're getting ready to play basketball games, he's not really worried about men's basketball, 7 a.m. lift on Monday morning. He's worried about beating Gordon Wednesday afternoon. So for us to have 3 people who only do strength and conditioning is really a game changer in terms of the individual attention that our student athletes get in regards to that. And, you can go on our website and look at our roster page year to year, and you can see our guys change and their bodies, become more explosive, more athletic. So that's huge for us. Bottom left corner, that's home for us. As part of the $52 million expansion, we got a refinished floor. We got new bleachers. They finally added bleachers behind our benches, which was a long time coming. Kind of stumped when we were hosting NCAA tournament weekends, year in and year out for a stretch there. And we had to bring in portable stands to take care of all the crowd that we would get. So took care of that with the renovations. And but mostly, the biggest thing for us is because of the new expansion to our building, we have 3 beautiful rec courts that are where the students, the average students now can go to play their pickup games, to do whatever they need to do. And that means that our facility is now essentially varsity only. So as long as women's basketball or women's volleyball is not practicing, then the floor is open for our guys to use. So, we have the shooting dome, we have the 6 baskets, and it's really, 24/7 access pretty much year round where our guys can go in and take advantage of that stuff, which has been awesome for us. We've been lucky we've had really great players, but they're really great players because they work to become great players. And both, Matt and Scott know this, success doesn't happen by accident. Our 2-time National Player of the Year, he basically broke our gun by himself in between the sophomore and junior year. And we have another kid now who's a rising senior who was all region this past year. He's the same way. If he has a 90-minute break between classes on a Tuesday morning in September, he's coming up and getting shots up instead of going back to his dorm playing 2K. And that's why he's special. So it's great for us to have the facility that allows him to do that. Photo on the right just kind of gives you an outdoor view of the new facility on the back end of our building. In terms of our roster, like I said, we've been lucky. We've had some great players. Andrew Jaworski is the rising senior I was just talking about. He was 2nd team all-region last year. I think this is now back-to-back years where he was all-conference. And he's already a 1,000-point scorer with a year to go. Danny Inch's son, Drew Inch, transferred in from Utah State. He became our starting point guard early last year. He's been awesome for us. He's just really competitive. Matt Patterson's one of our other seniors. He's the kid on the floor driving the ball away from Amherst. A little loose ball there. Nice little win for the Beavers. They're going to row against Amherst. And, we've got a good group. It's a really talented senior class, but, if everything goes according to plan, which obviously in the world of COVID, nothing's really going according to plan right now, but with 4 guys potentially going out the door, we're trying to bring in 4 guys this year. But that being said, we have 2 juniors that play, major roles for us. We've got 2 sophomores, rising sophomores that started games for us last year as freshmen at different points in the season. And then we've got a 4-man freshman class coming in that we're really excited about with, Stephen Watson from Pittsburgh, where into the Kispy School. Jesse Jones went to Mount Verdi down in Florida, which is obviously a national level program. Hit 6 threes against Cushing over at the Hoop Hall class against Springfield, which was awesome. John Gorgel is an Arizona kid that he played over here at Governor's Academy. And then Jack Stady, who literally grew up about 15 minutes from campus in Weston and went to the River School down the road. So it's a good group that we're excited about to, hopefully keep this thing rolling. And five of the last 7 years gone to the NCAAs, and we want to go back the next 5 years too. So we need talented kids to make that happen. But that's kind of the brief overview, I guess, if you will, Matt.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I can't stress it enough. I know, it was a slide in your presentation, Coach, but you guys were the national champions. I mean, it's very few programs can say that in at any level. And national champions is something you guys will always have, and all the success that you guys have had going to the NCAA tournament and having some elite level players. I mean, it's just tremendous. Coach Brennan has done a phenomenal job there. And a lot of that obviously comes from bringing in great players and continuing that culture going. So it's been great to see that. I'm going to see if Scotty has any questions. We got about maybe 5 or 10 more minutes left. Scott?
Coach, first question. We have a high academic camp or all academic basketball camp in Chicago coming up. When Babson walks in the gym or watches the camp on live stream, how can a player stand out in that environment?
Yeah, so for us, like everybody else in the country, we're looking for guys that can obviously, dribble, pass, and shoot and score the ball. But more so like your competitive level, how hard you're willing to compete for, loose balls, stuff like that is always something that, grabs our attention. And sometimes it sounds cliche, but the kid John Gorgel that we have coming in this year, we literally took him just because every time we watched him play, if there was a loose ball within 10 feet of him, he was the one that was going to go get it. And he always came up with it. And for us to be successful, like we need guys that are willing to do that. And that carries over, beyond just diving on the floor, setting hard screen, stuff like that. But guys that do that are also the guys that are going to be living in the gym, getting in the extra shots that we were just talking about, and that really, become special. We have another kid on our team, James Welch, played for the Middlesex Magic, which is obviously, a really high-level AAU program here on the East Coast. And he was like their third string point guard. He was behind this kid, Tom Shaughnessy, that went to Brown, and Ty Aronson, who, is 3-year starter now at Tufts at the point guard position. So, like, Jimmy rarely saw the floor in games, but, like, every time there was a break at a halftime or in between game sets, if there was an open hoop within, 50, 60 feet of him, like, he was running over there and getting shots up. And so he was always somebody that we noticed just because of that. And then we were at Spooky Nook, and it was like an 8 p.m. game on a Saturday night, and they were playing the Jayhawks, and we were watching on the Jayhawks, and we were watching Magic. And finally, like, his number got called was a foul trouble, and he went in and hit 3 threes. And, like, that's, the sole reason that we circled him, on that July night, and ended up, finding out more about him over the course of the year and recruiting him further. But, like, little things like that always, catch my eye at least, because, like I said, at Division III, like, we need guys that want to work. We need guys that are willing to do the extra stuff, because we can't work with you year-round. When I was at BU, Matt, you were at Northeastern, like, you had the hours in the summer, you had the hours in the fall and the spring, so we could kind of babysit you and, hey, we're going to get up 1,000 shots this week on Hell or High Water because you're going to do it on my time. Well, Division III, like, I need to trust that you're going to get 1,000 shots per week because I can't babysit you. And that's what makes us, I think, unique as a program, is we got, 16, 17 guys that want to do that every day.
And, a lot of kids will be finishing their July AAU period here, and luckily we'll have our all-academic circuit here starting. But for the kids who can't go to those events, how do they get on your radar and have you see those things via email, or how do they contact you?
Yeah, so what we've been doing a lot, obviously we've had to adapt our recruiting because we're still not allowed to go out on the road as a staff right now, just because of the school and, state regulations and all that stuff. But, we've been lucky. We've had a lot of kids reach out via email, and that's always the best way for us is just to shoot us an email and tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of the academic piece, because obviously we need to check that box off first, and then film. And, I've probably watched more high school game film in the past month than I've ever watched before. And, some of that stuff carries over on film, some of it doesn't. But, as we start to have a conversation with recruits, Coach B does a great job, asking questions to kind of probe and get answers that kind of lets us know really, where you stand, whether it's asking, one of my favorite questions is, like, tell me about a real struggle that you guys had this past season. And it's really telling when kids talk about, I had this issue, I had this issue, or we had this issue. And then, how did you guys deal with it? Well, like, the coach was an idiot, so I just didn't listen. Well, that's not really going to fly. And like, we all laugh about that as adults and coaches, but like, something you hear that sometimes, and it's like, you know what? Like, this kid's, about me. It's not about we. And it's, like I said, as cliche as some of this stuff sounds, it really does, carry water in our minds.
Oh, that's awesome. I know a lot of kids are in that kind of situation right now. I heard you mention the Utah State kid. Does Babson take transfers, or how does that work?
Yeah, we've made a quote unquote killing with transfers. Coach Brennan, he loves to talk about the fact that every NCAA tournament team he's ever had has had a transfer on it. So the 2014 team, that was the first one in, I think almost 10 years to go to the tournament. They had a kid, Kenny Ross, that transferred in. He started off at West Virginia, then he went to Adelphi, and then he ended up at Babson for his final 2 years. And he graduated, and we ended up getting another transfer from St. Anselm's, a Division II school that's, founded, I think, 2 Final Fours in the last decade. They do a great job. Isaiah Nelson, who, was best friends with Joey Flannery, which obviously helps us. Isaiah came in, he would have been a 1,000-point scorer if he had played all 4 years for us. He was an absolute dominant force down low. After we won the title, we ended up taking 3 Division I transfers that year. We had Graham Dolan transferred in from University of Buffalo, Tim Hasbargen from Cleveland State, and Brandon Johnson from Boston University. And Graham was recruited by Hurley before he left, and Brandon was a walk-on at BU, and Tim was at Cleveland State. I don't remember if it was a walk-on or not, but he played for them a little bit that year. And their coach got fired, and his new coach came in. He graduated in 3 years. Tim did, so he was going to figure out if the grad school, and the coach kind of told him, like, it's time for you to move on. So we benefited from that with those 3 guys. Graham wanted more of like an academic basketball balance, which I totally understand. I mean, even playing in the MAC like Buffalo does, you're on the road, 6 days a week, sometimes, doing that Michigan swing or whatever. And Graham just wasn't able to get out of college what he wanted to at that level. So we transferred down, and, all 3 of them had different impacts in our program, but they were all a huge part of who we are. And then, like I said, Crew Range transferred in from Utah State. And he can fit in the inches some of the team. Typically, he's going to be a tough, competitive kid that can play a little bit of basketball.
I would think so. The last question I have is, do you value or does the program value post-grad kids more, or like straight out of high school kids? Because I know you mentioned a couple different schools that, a lot of kids take that post-grad year to do.
Yeah, so we've had, I don't know off the top of my head the exact numbers, but we've definitely had way more, kids that went to prep school than kids that don't go to prep school. Part of that, like I said earlier, when I was just talking about myself, is it's just the nature of basketball in New England. If you're good enough to be a scholarship level player, and everybody that we recruit, we like to think as a scholarship level player. That's why, we're good D3 schools. We get, D2 and low major kids. And so, high school kids are all flocking to prep schools to try to get those scholarship offers here in New England. So that's just been kind of the nature of the beast for us. It also, I think, helps a ton with just maturity and being able to come to college and be able to make that transition more easily, because they've already lived away from home. They've already had to, figure out time management skills away from their parents. So when they get to school, it's a little bit easier for them to kind of just slide right in and get going, basketball and academics hand in hand, without having to worry about, like, hey, this kid's never lived away from home, it's going to be homesick, et cetera, et cetera.
That's awesome.
Coach, we got about a minute or so left, and just a reminder again, if anybody has more questions for Coach here, his email is down in the chat box. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you guys. But with the last minute here, is there anything else that you wanted to briefly touch on or talk about, just about the school or the program or anything before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're just like trying to get competitive kids that can help us go back to the NCAA. So for us, this is a unique year. We're trying to find a point guard, we're trying to find a win, we're trying to find a big guy, whether it's a stretch 4 or a true 5, like, basically need one of every. So come on down and, reach out to us via email. Like Matt said, I'm more than happy to talk. Even if you're not interested in Babson, we try to be a resource to kids, regardless of whether or not we're going to recruit them or not. We try to talk a lot about our recruitment process, things that we would suggest that they look for, because a lot of kids, they might be going through this for the first time. They might not have had an older sibling that played college basketball. So, you know, we try to help guide you where even if you're not going to be a recruit for us, we want to see you have a good 4-year experience. So any questions at all about the process, whether it's about us or just in general, like feel free to reach out. Like I said, it's trying to be an open book as much as possible.
Yep. It's a city built on championships, that's for sure. So you can go to Babson and maybe get a chance to win another one. Coach, appreciate you staying up late on the East Coast with us tonight. Hope we get a chance to see you again on the road soon. But please stay safe, and we'll be in touch. Thanks again for joining us.
Definitely appreciate it, man. Thanks for that.
Take care. See ya. We're really excited to bring in our second speaker of the evening, coming to us from Rochester, New York, University of Rochester, Dan Kaigler. Welcome to Tuesday Night Talks.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be on. I appreciate you guys having me. Wish I could have made it out to the West Coast this summer for one of you guys' elite camps. That was the goal, but you know, I'm lucky to just be on here for a half an hour to talk.
Of course. Well, you can make it up to us by coming to the next one, and I know you'll try your best to do that when we resume here. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach. Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey and kind of what brought you to University of Rochester.
Yeah, so I'm from Syracuse, New York. I had a basketball family growing up. I was one of the only ones to take it as far as I did in my family. I went to a small private high school called Bishop Ludden, where I had a very successful career as a high school player, winning a couple of different championships along the way. And then I went the Division II route. That was kind of the level that I felt that I could play at and have a good chance for a good career with playing time and really enjoy my 4 years. So Division II was the route that I went, and I started out at Gannon University in Erie, Pennsylvania, where I won my first conference tournament as a player, which was really huge for me. I had a great learning experience at Gannon for a year until I transferred to Lemoyne College to play for Coach Pat Beeline, which was coming home for me, which was really exciting. Friends and family could come and see me play now. And after a year of struggling there at Lemoyne, we didn't do too well my sophomore year there, but then turned it around the next 2 seasons and went back-to-back to the NCAA tournament. Ended up having the best year in Lemoyne basketball history as a senior, going 27-7 and making it all the way to the Elite Eight. So very successful playing career that I feel I had. And then after some injuries and a long time of thinking and contemplating going to continue my career playing professionally, I decided to go the coaching route. I knew I wanted to coach after I got done playing, so I just kind of skipped the overseas period and went straight into coaching. So I was able to stay on, and Coach Beeline gave me a great opportunity to stay on at Lemoyne and coach there as an assistant for a year, where I just fell in love with it, as I knew I would. And we ended up making the tournament that year, going 18-10. Unfortunately, losing in the first round, but we had a really good team that year. And through some upstate New York connections, after Coach Pat Beeline had took a head coaching job at Niagara, I searched out for my next position, and through those connections, I ended up getting connected with head coach Luke Kershaw here at Rochester. And he offered me this unbelievable opportunity at this point in my career to join the Rochester staff, and it was a really exciting moment for me. And when he offered me the position, it was a no-brainer for me to accept.
Yeah, no, definitely. And tell us a little bit about, besides just kind of being maybe somewhat familiar with the area and the school a little bit, what is it about the school that attracted you, and what is it about the school itself that, you'd like to talk about with players and parents that attracts them, specifically stuff off the court, I guess?
Yeah, so just talking about the school in general without basketball, one of the biggest things about U of R that I love is just it's this good balance between the extremes in a lot of different ways. It's something that I talk to almost all of my recruits about. It's just this really good balance that you'll hear me talk about throughout, just talking about Rochester, both non-basketball and basketball. So one of the biggest things that I noticed immediately right off the bat was just the beautiful campus that we have in upstate New York. It's I really love how we have the Genesee River that flows through campus. It kind of borders both sides, so it kind of gives it this kind of enclosed campus. But again, like I was talking about with kind of this good balance between the two. We're only 3 miles from downtown Rochester, so we're very easily accessible throughout the city. So you kind of get this best of both worlds where if you want to be on campus for all 4 years and have this enclosed kind of campus feel of things, you can have that, or you can explore the city and get out off of campus from day one and everything in between. So it really gives you that best of both worlds. And people are really surprised at the size of Rochester itself. So the metropolitan area of Rochester is about 1 million people, which is, again, this really good balance between, not having a really huge city with all the congestion like a New York, like a Chicago or something like that, but not having this small city in the middle of nowhere either. So it's, again, another good balance. And then, people are actually not too familiar where Rochester is all the time. So one thing I do like to talk about is it's in upstate New York. We are actually about 5.5 hours away from New York City. People get that kind of pretty much confused when they hear New York. They just automatically think New York City, but we're actually pretty far away from that. Just the campus has over 6,000 undergrad students. So guys like that, again, it goes back to being that balance. It's a school where you're constantly meeting new people and seeing new people, but at the same time, you're not completely faceless to where no one on campus knows who you are. Guys just love that feeling of campus with the amount of students that we have in our undergrad. And then a part of that is that almost everyone lives on campus for all 4 years. It's not a requirement by the school, but just everyone loves being on that campus. It's a real campus, homey feel to it, and people really like that. Just more about the academics, though. We're a Tier 1 research university, which is one of the smallest of that level. We're ranked 29th in the country, and something that is really, really overlooked. We're 22nd in best value in the country. So, it shows that you're really getting the bang for your buck when you're choosing Rochester. With that higher sticker price that we have on the school, and schools like ours, to know that you're getting the best one of the best valued educations that you can get in the country, is something that's huge for us. Going along with that is we offer over 200 academic programs and really unique research opportunities. Having a hospital on campus for us has been a huge resource, and it's another selling point. We're actually number 5 in nursing in the country. But also what it does is it provides us with all these different types of research opportunities. They say that we have over 8,000 research universities at the hospital alone. With only 6,000 to 6,500 undergrad students, there's more research opportunities than there are students. So right from day one, you're able to kind of get in there and do the applied learning and do the research opportunities that you wouldn't be able to have at some of the larger universities, the other Tier 1 research universities that have those 50 and 60,000 students. One of the most unique things, I think, to Rochester is just our class structure. So we actually have no required courses at Rochester other than a freshman intro writing course. What they did was they bridged the models of an open curriculum and a core curriculum and kind of put those together to kind of guard between the criticisms of both. An open curriculum is just really surface level learning. All you have to do is kind of meet a certain number of credits, and to where you're just kind of taking you can just take intro classes just to meet those credits, right? You're not really learning in depth in any of those fields. And then the core curriculum is the complete opposite, to where you have to take, these 2 levels of a science or an English or whatever it may be. So instead of having that, we kind of put those together to where, and without trying to go too in depth with it, we call it a cluster system, to where it is, you just have to have, you fulfill 3 clusters. So it's in 3 of the main categories. And as long as you fill 3 successive classes in those categories, you will fulfill your cluster. So what it does is really just, first of all, it asks you, what do you want to learn about right away? Let's figure out what you want to learn about, and then let's learn in depth with it. Let's take the 100 level, 200 level, and 300 level course in that, and the thing that you're passionate about, right? You want to learn about, and instead of just, what don't you want to learn about? Let's get those out of the way first before you get to the in depth. So with this, it just gives so much academic freedom to our players and our recruits, to where they can, if they wanted to, they can be a dual major. They can have a major with 2 and 3 minors. We actually had a triple major graduate a couple of years ago. So there's a ton of different academic freedoms throughout.
That's awesome. Yeah, and beautiful part of the country, and there in upstate New York, like you were talking about, and a really amazing university, lots of great academic offerings, and then you guys on the basketball court play at a really high level and arguably one of the top leagues in the country. So tell us a little bit about kind of University of Rochester when it comes to what you guys do on the court.
Yeah, so just like you said, a very high level competitive league. The program has a lot of things that kind of gives it this quote unquote Division I feel, for lack of a better term. We have the beautiful facilities. We have the three full-time coaches on staff. We have a very unique way of traveling at the Division III level, flying to a portion of our games, something that you don't get a lot at that level, and even at some other higher levels as well. And then our gym is in the Palestra, top 25 sports venues to play at in the country. It's kind of got this really older kind of structure, but it's constantly being renovated. They just put in a scoreboard a couple of years ago. The gym was just completely repainted last year. So they're constantly doing updates, not only to just the gym, but to the campus as a whole, which also contributes to that kind of Division I feel. We have the coded locker room that is strictly for us, that we can get into as long as the building is open, which, it's very helpful for our players. They want to come in between classes, get up shots. They can come back, they can go up, shower in our locker room, and then get back off to class if they only have a short amount of time. So having that is a very huge resource for us. And then, like you said, part of the UAA, which is the University Athletic Association, is made up of larger research universities similar to ours. And it's one of the best Division III conferences in the country. And it's very, very highly competitive. Going kind of from the Midwest over to the East is where we'll play. So we go to larger cities. We'll go to Chicago, St. Louis, Atlanta, New York City, Boston, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. So those cities will make up our league. And we've had a very sustained success throughout it. We won a national championship in 1990. We've been to 4 Final Fours and 11 Sweet 16s. Most recently, we made a run to the Elite 8 a couple of years ago. And also more individual accomplishments, having 18 NABC All-Americans, 6 in the last 9 years under head coach McCurtsey, and then 9 UAA players and 4 under coach. So a lot of success under Coach McCurtsey. He's been great for the university. He just finished his 10th season. So over the past 10 years, he's been really huge for our program, taking us to a couple of different NCAA tournament appearances, and again, the All-American, All-UAA players that I mentioned. But just kind of going back to the league, the best part about the league is that every game is challenging. There's never a night off. 1 through 8 in the UAA, it doesn't matter. You have to come prepared to play every single night, and that doesn't go for every league in the country, right? So you have some leagues where you can go and the bottom 3-4 teams maybe aren't competing for anything, but we have a league where everyone's competing for something. Everyone has the aspirations to make it to the NCAA tournament and further, and it's possible for them all to do it. So I think that's one of the best parts about our league.
Yeah, you guys are doing it at a really high level, combining the academics and the basketball there at Rochester. So yeah, I'm going to toss it over to Scott, and he'll ask a couple more questions for you, Dan.
Coach, I'm sold. I love it. I talk about value every week. You're the first coach to mention it. I think that's one of the most important things. Top 30 university, top 25 value school. What does it take to get in?
So that's there's no real set answer to that question. admissions has kind of a ballpark of where they're looking for. Where I like to start is around a 3.5 GPA, about a 1200 SAT. Try to take that ballpark and try to go up from there as best I can. It just makes it easier for admissions. But, like I said, it's just, there's no set number. It doesn't mean that, if you have a 3.4 GPA with 1190 SAT, you're automatically not going to get in. That's just not how it works. So our admissions office does a really good job of taking each applicant one by one and looking over their entire application and processing it that way, to where they're factoring in everything possible that they can. They're going to factor in, did they take some AP courses, extracurricular activities that they did that, positive. They're going to take into account, even as far as background, are you first generation college student? They're going to take all these factors in and look at each applicant one by one, and really they do a good job of doing it and to getting what they want out of certain students coming to campus.
No, that's huge. The kind of holistic approach. When it comes to what's a sticker price, and then what kind of aid does the university offer?
Yeah, so the sticker price is around 75 to 78,000 a year, and we actually do two things to help out with aid, and it's pretty unique at our level. The first thing that we do is that we meet 100% of demonstrated need by a family. So you're going to fill out the FAFSA, and we also do a CSS profile that will get you to your number of estimated family contribution is the number that that the families are going to be looking at, because that's going to be the number that they're expected to pay. Mm-hmm. Everything else outside of that number, the university will put together in a package of grants, scholarships, some loans, maybe some work studies, things like that. The easiest way for guys watching tonight is to just go on our net price calculator on our website, and they can just fill out those questions. Their families can fill out those questions and get a rough number about what you would expect to pay and what you would expect to get in aid. It just started actually now that we're in August, is that we can actually do a more in-depth read where we can submit some forms to our admissions office, our financial aid office, and we can get some feedback actually, and we can actually get a breakdown of what each grant, each scholarship, and so forth will be, and they'll actually get that in the mail. And then the second thing that we do is we offer merit money. So merit money is going to be strictly based off of academics, accomplishments, GPA, test scores, AP classes, again, the extracurricular activities that I talked about. They're all going to be factored into getting merit money. So merit money should be thought of completely separate from demonstrated need. If you qualify for merit money and need-based aid, then it'll just get kind of put together into one package. So the merit money is going to be for families who don't qualify for the need-based aid. So when you kind of choose Rochester, knowing that you're not going to get aid, it's a nice little cherry on top at the end that you're going to get this kind of discount. And it's guaranteed over 4 years. So say they offer you, $5,000 in merit money, that's actually going to end up being $20,000 at the end of your 4 years, which kind of ends up being a nice little discount in the grand scheme of things.
No, that's huge. You have both sides of the coin there. And the pre-read thing is a game changer when it comes to recruitment, because you can kind of figure out where they're at early in the process.
Right.
And then we talked earlier about our elite camps. In a normal year, Rochester would be out at our all academic events. When you go to those events or you're watching it on live streams, what stands out to you?
Yeah, so there's kind of 3 layers to this answer that I'd kind of like to share. So the first one is the most obvious answer to that question is talent, right? Skills. Can you shoot? Can you dribble? Can you pass? Those are kind of the obvious things that we're looking for. And then kind of something more specific to Rochester that we kind of look for is the type of player that they are. How are you going to fit into our roster, and how are you going to fit into what we're trying to do? If you kind of look at our roster, we have these kind of lean, longer players who are kind of versatile, can play multiple positions, can defend multiple positions. can do a couple different things on the floor, can put it on the floor, can shoot it from the outside, can do multiple different things. So having a versatile player is kind of a plus. If you can do something very, very well, we'll also do that as well. But versatility when you have versatility, it just makes things a lot easier, right? When you can play multiple positions, when you're not just strictly a shooting guard, but you can play 1 through 3. Now we don't have to just specifically recruit you for that point guard position. We can kind of be flexible a little bit. So that versatility helps. And then 2 things in particular that I really like to look for is the first is just the overall feel of the game. Can you recognize where the ball needs to go to next? Can you make that extra pass? Do you know when is a good time to catch? When is a good catch and shoot? When is a good time to catch and put it on the floor and dribble, or catch and just swing it? Defensively, do you have an idea of defensive rotations? A lot of people will be surprised as to how many guys come to college and don't really have that kind of sense of the correct defensive rotations. Who's to close to next in a scramble? Things as simple as that. So I kind of look for some of those things. And then most importantly, I look for guys who are going to play hard. That is actually a skill in itself, and that is one of the most important skills, I believe, in basketball, is just playing hard. And it's something that a lot of guys miss now that they see some of the talented players in the NBA just coming up launching threes, and they're highly skilled. They kind of lose sight of that, of playing hard. And they want to come out and do the different tricks with the ball, and they want to shoot from 5 feet behind the three-point line when really, it's going to be that guy who's diving on the floor for loose balls. It's going to be the guy who's going after the defensive rebounds when it matters the most in games. And those are the guys we want on the floor. Those are the guys that we want in our program.
You're completely right. I mean, we do camps all year round. The kids who play the hardest are the ones that always stand out the most. That's an undervalued asset to someone's game.
Definitely.
Last question for you is, you're a recruited athlete. What advice do you have for, this group and future generations of, prospective college athletes from your experience?
Yeah. So two things I would like to say. First is just get your name out there. Go to as many different showcases, as many different elite camps. Send emails to the coaches or the programs that you're interested in. We read and evaluate every single email that comes to us. So that's kind of some of the things that we do with our recruiting process. And then and this is a good time to offer a little advice when constructing an email. First is just make sure you include your year. I can't tell you how many guys don't include what year they're graduating, and that matters. That's huge. And then 2 is just include a highlight if you have it. It's a quick way for us to just be able to evaluate you in a rough sense. Because if you don't send anything at all, I get a lot of emails where I don't send anything at all and they want feedback. And, it's how am I supposed to provide feedback without any type of substance, right? But a full game video right away is kind of tough. If I get 50 emails from guys and each game is an hour long, that's 50 hours of trying to watch full game films, which isn't possible, right? So to just send maybe a 5-minute highlight, I can do all 50 in one day, and then I can kind of have an idea of the type of player they are, and we can start going more in depth into the recruiting process. And then the last thing, a piece of advice that I would like to offer is really simple. Just enjoy the process. Enjoy being recruited. Enjoy going through it. Don't be so focused on what's at the end, right? We get so caught up in the end result sometimes and what's going on. And instead of focusing on and forgetting to enjoy what's going on right now, enjoy being wanted by coaches. That's a good feeling to be wanted. Enjoy it. Enjoy going to visits. Enjoy emailing coaches. Enjoy talking to them and hearing what they have to offer. And then once you get to college, which is ultimately the end goal right now, is getting there and then taking that next step. But once you get there, don't stop enjoying it, right? Enjoy the practices. Enjoy the things that you do with your team off the court, traveling on the bus trips and things like that. Go and enjoy everything and not look so much at the end.
Coach, I had somewhat of a personal question for you, and you mentioned kind of your journey and going from being a player and transitioning to coaching. So, what's been the most, maybe one of the most rewarding things for you about, being a younger coach and somebody who's, pretty recently was playing, and so you can kind of relate to a lot of the players and what they're going through in their recruiting process, being student athletes, all that stuff. How positive of an experience has it been for you since you've kind of got started in coaching, and how do you use that to kind of help relate to the players that you coach at Rochester?
Yeah, it's been great for me so far. As far as recruiting, it's just been great taking guys through the process and being a part of helping them out with their future. It's part of one of the biggest reasons that I joined coaching, and it's been great. Helping guys choose their right paths, whether it's Rochester or it's the next school, to just see young men or young boys try to become men, and try to be successful with their life. And then just personally at Rochester, I've really enjoyed, watching my players have success, whether it's something as simple as winning a game. We've actually had 4 players get accolades this year, one of them being an All-American. So that was it was great watching him receive that, getting that award. So, just having those type of things, those humbling moments of just seeing other people's success that you've been around and been a part of, that's been probably the most rewarding for me so far.
And one last question that I had for you, Coach, before we wrap things up. So you played at the Division II level and now coaching at the Division III level. We have a lot of players that are on this call that, most kids probably think that they're Division I players. They're going to the NBA, all that stuff. From your time as a player and now recruiting to a high-level Division III, what are maybe 1 or 2 things that stand out to you when you're recruiting or when you're evaluating a kid to say this is a D1 level kid, scholarship D2, or this is a Division III, or is there much of a difference in your mind?
So actually, players, you're only going to play at one level for the most part. There are guys who transfer between levels, but to some degree, some of the levels just aren't that drastically different as people might think in their minds. Obviously there's going to be a big difference between a Power 5 Division I conference and a small Division III conference. There's going to be a huge difference, right? But when it gets into some of the upper echelons of Division III, Division II, and some of the lower level of Division I's, low major schools, there's not going to be a huge discrepancy in the talent. Right. I'm recruiting guys that are getting recruited, to Patriot League, Ivy League schools at Division I level. And that makes up our conference is borderline scholarship players, guys who should have gotten offered or did get offered and chose to come to a Division III school. So the talent level isn't as different as you might think, in a general sense. So I would advise, guys not to get so caught up in just the level Division I, II, and III. Pick the place that fits you the best. If it's a Division III school, then it's a Division III school. If it's a Division I school, then it's a Division I school, but it has to make sure that fit is there.
Yeah, that's so important. And like you said, Coach, I mean, at your level in your league, if you want to win the league, if you want to make NCAA tournaments and hopefully win a national title, you got to recruit some of those scholarship level players. Our last speaker that we just had on, talked about having some transfers from the Division I level. You guys, like you said, are recruiting guys that are getting Ivy Patriot League offers, all that stuff. So I think that's really important what you said. And I hope that the players are really letting that seep in a little bit, because it's so important, especially now with everything that's been going on. We got a minute or 2 here left, Coach. Anything else that you wanted to touch on briefly or say before we wrap things up for the night?
Just, anytime for the recruits out there watching, that you guys want to connect with me, I can not just to talk about Rochester, just talk about the recruiting process in general. We like to offer ourselves as a resource for student athletes who are up and coming and looking to make their college choice. So, you can always reach out to me. I believe you guys included my email. Yep, somewhere on here. So you feel free to reach out to me, shoot me an email. Especially if you guys are interested in the University of Rochester, we're still actively recruiting our 2021 class. And then for future players as well, if you guys want to start kind of getting on our radar, and as far as 2022s, 2023s, you guys can reach out as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and like you said, we have Coach Kaigler's email down below. It's on the website. Please feel free to reach out to him, follow him on social media, all that stuff. And Coach, I really appreciate it. You stayed up even later than our previous speaker on the East Coast. So props to you, and we appreciate you staying up with us, and really excited to hopefully get a chance to see you on the road soon whenever that time comes. But in the meantime, please stay safe, be well, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again for being with us.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys having me. It's been great, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys soon here.
Definitely. All right, Dan. Have a good night, man.
You too.
What's up? How's it going?
Terrific. Thank you guys for the opportunity. It's great to be on here with you guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate you for joining us tonight. Our third and final speaker of the evening, Coach Ryan Kershaw, from the great state of Minnesota. And we just really appreciate you being with us tonight, man. It's exciting to have you here and tell us a little bit about your program. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey and kind of what led you in coaching.
Yeah, terrific. So this next year will be my 20th year involved in collegiate basketball, Division III basketball specifically. I actually grew up. I'm actually originally from just outside of Houston, Texas, and grew up there. When I looked at schools, I had some family that lived in Minnesota, and a cousin of mine went to school, St. Olaf College, which is the smallest college here in Minnesota, and that's where I ended up. I played basketball there for 4 years. And I'll even go back a little bit. Like I knew, for me personally, like I knew even when I was younger that coaching was something that I had an interest in and wanted to pursue. And I didn't know exactly how, but I knew that playing might help lead to that in some way, shape, or form. And so for me, the best opportunity for me to be able to play and be a part of a program was at the Division III level. And that was in some ways what with the connections that I had led me to St. Olaf. And so I spent 4 years there, played there, actually coached there for a couple years, and then had the opportunity to move on to Augsburg College, which is now Augsburg University in Minneapolis. Spent 6 years there as part of the staff. Had a great experience. I started as a graduate assistant and in a position that was kind of created, and then ended up in a full-time assistant role. And then from there moved on to Carleton, which I've been at for this next year will be my 7th year there. So the opportunity to come to Carleton was really unique for multiple reasons. Because of the school was a big part of it. Carleton is a tremendous academic school, which I'll kind of get into some of that too. And the history of the basketball program, a successful program, certainly regionally and within our conference too. And then the other piece is my father-in-law is the head coach. And so that was, a very unique opportunity for me to go and work with him and for our family to have that opportunity. So that's kind of been my journey. And I would just say that it's been interesting for me along the way. I've been at 3 different schools. I've seen 3 different types of schools, granted Division III, but just even within Division III and different schools that, have different values and what's important and what drives each school from that standpoint has been really unique. And it's been a tremendous experience being at Carleton thus far.
Well, a lot of pressure being an assistant coach and coaching for your father-in-law. I can only imagine. But
the Christmas dinners when we're 4-0 and when we're 3-1 going into the holiday break are much more enjoyable than the ones when we're below 500.
Oh, I can only imagine. You alluded a little bit to it, Coach, just about the academic profile of Carleton, and share with us and for the people that are on the call tonight a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So Coach was on from Rochester earlier and talked about their academic piece. And just for people that aren't aware, Carleton is one of the top academic schools in the country. if you want to go by whatever metrics you want to use, U.S. News and World Report, which is obviously, a very bona fide and reputable ranking. I think Carleton has been in the top 10 since like the early 1980s, which is when those rankings started. Yep. I think right now we're 6th or 7th. Honestly, we've never been outside the top 10. We're anywhere from like 3rd to 9th typically. 7th. And 7th now. Okay. Thank you. And we don't, to be honest, like we don't really boast or like talk about the rankings a lot. It's more of just, I bring that up more as just a barometer, and that's for people to understand. And as it pertains specifically to Minnesota, what we talk about a lot of times is Carleton, it's kind of like an AP caliber school. So like kids that are taking your high school classes where, there's a difference. Like you take your kind of regular English classes, then you take your AP English class, right? And there's a difference with that. And Carleton is kind of like that AP college in a lot of ways, particularly as it pertains here to us more regionally in a lot of ways. And so yeah, it's a tremendous academic school. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We pride ourselves on the success that we've had, the consistency that we've had with our basketball program, but the academics will always be first at Carleton. And there's a lot of different reasons and factors that go into that. And there's a couple things that I'll say too is, because you guys, like, I think for a lot of people that are on here, you've had other coaches from schools that are high academic schools talk like, so what's different? What differentiates Carleton from some of the other schools? And there's a couple things that I'll say. First and foremost is going to be probably the fact that we're on a trimester academic calendar. And so as it pertains to basketball, that's pretty unique. Most academic colleges are going to be on some version of a semester program where it's maybe like 4 classes in the fall. Here locally, there's some schools will have like 1 class in January, like a J term, something like that. And then your 4 classes in the spring term. And usually those fall and the spring terms, those are going to be 12 or 13 weeks terms. At Carleton, we actually have, with the trimester, it's 3 10-week academic terms. And we start, the fall term starts basically the middle of September, goes until right before Thanksgiving. Then we have basically a 5-6 week break. The winter term starts first part of January, goes until middle of March. And then the spring term will then start basically first week of April and go until end of May, early June. So what's unique about the trimester? There's different factors that are unique about taking 3 classes at a time, having it compressed into 10 weeks. Like it's a very rigorous process, and you have obviously tremendous faculty, and you have a very bright and capable and motivated student body who you can move through a lot of the subject matter quicker and a lot of those pieces. But specifically as it pertains to our basketball program, it's really a tremendous opportunity to be able to go to a school like Carleton and be able to study abroad. And so we have a number of our student athletes, particularly men's basketball players, who will, because of the way the trimester is set up and because of basketball being a winter sport where our start date is basically middle of October 15th, goes until middle of March, depending on the NCAA tournament. From that standpoint, that coincides with the fall and the winter terms. And so a lot of our student athletes, our basketball student athletes have the opportunity to go study abroad in the spring. And sometimes some of our guys will do it in the summer too, depending on their majors. And so that's really, really a unique opportunity, is for men's basketball players to be at a top academic school like Carleton, where they get the academic experience, competitive basketball in a really competitive league, and then also be able to have that study abroad experience as well. That's pretty unique. There's just not many schools, not many high academic schools at any level, Division I, Division II, Division III, that offer that type of opportunity that we do at Carleton. So that's a huge piece. Another couple things I would say that are differentiators is like Carleton. I would say it's a very collaborative place. So not to stereotype high academic places, but there's a lot of high academic schools that, to be honest, like there's a culture at the school that can be a little bit more competitive and cutthroat academically. And Carleton is much more collaborative. We don't keep class rank. And so it's a place where we talk about, like, you're going to do more collaboration. Students are going to do more collaboration with their professors, with their other students. And it's a situation where, we have a number of our players who are kind of focused maybe like econ, business, or pre-med in a lot of ways. And so the pre-med guys or students like they're not worried about like, hey, can I help so-and-so study in my organic chemistry class because in 2 years we're each going to be competing for the same med school spot, and I don't know if I really how well I want them to do. That's just not necessarily that's not at all really the academic culture and environment that exists at Carleton. Maybe part of that is being in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest, and there's a Minnesota nice component that gets branded about at times. But it makes for a really unique academic experience and an opportunity to go and be in a place like Carleton where it's really rigorous academically, but you're in it. You're in it with other students. You're in it with your professors. Everybody's in it together, and there's more of that collaborative spirit, which is pretty neat from that standpoint too. And so that's a huge thing. And then the last thing that I'll say is kind of a little bit different. It might not make as much sense on the surface when you think about Minnesota geographically, especially people from the West Coast, and you go, okay, well, how cold is it, and those things. But to be honest, our geography is really a neat thing, and because of where our location is, we're located about 45 minutes south of Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're about 35 minutes south of the Twin Cities airport, Minneapolis, St. Paul airport. And so we draw students from, like any high academic school, you're going to draw students from all over the country, all over the world. Really, 10% of our students are international. Each class of students is about 525, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior class. And all of those classes are going to be represented, all 50 states, 10% international, 10% first generation, all those things, right? And so, but it is really unique to have a school in Minnesota that draws, where we do, and our location is a big part of that. And it's interesting, even talking we have student athletes on our basketball team, from the West Coast. We have from the LA area, Pasadena, from Portland, Oregon. We have 2 kids from Colorado. So we have certainly some from the West Coast. We have obviously kids from the Midwest, and then from the East Coast as well. And it's interesting talking to them and their families, even not even our players, but students at Carleton, and why did you choose Carleton? And, you could have gone to a Ivy League school on the East Coast. You could have gone to a, really, really high academic, or even a large university, Stanford or Cal or whatever on the West Coast. And you chose Carleton. Why? And, the geography, like it, some kids on the West Coast, they may not want to stay in California or to those schools, and might want to stay at home. The East Coast, it might be a little bit too far in some ways. In Minnesota, it's, we're about basically a little under 4-hour plane ride of a flight, from, whether it's going to be from Southern California, Northern California, and, within an hour of being to campus. And so even that travel time, to and from, it's not flying 6 hours cross country and then you got a 4-hour car ride, whatever. And so those are little things, but I think that's all, those are all pieces that add up to what differentiates Carleton, what differentiates the school, and then a little bit in our basketball program as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Scotty and myself and a bunch of other guys, we got a chance to check out Minneapolis, and the Final Four was there last year, and love that part of the country. I went to college in Madison, Wisconsin, so I have a soft spot in my heart for the Midwest. And you kind of touched on Minnesota nice, but when it comes to the basketball court, you guys, there's nothing nice about it. And you look at some of the teams that you guys compete against in your league, you got top 10 ranked national teams, and then you guys are there every night. It's got to be a battle tell us a little bit about your team and kind of what you guys do on the basketball court.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think another piece, as you mentioned, Matt, like our league is very competitive, and I know the other coaches have all mentioned that. In Division III in general terms, like there's a lot of really good leagues, and I don't know, there's different metrics as far as kind of quote unquote power rankings, as far as what are the power leagues in Division III and for basketball. And our league has been up there in the top 5 in the last however many years, a long time. We've had St. Thomas, St. John's in our league that have perennially been very, very good schools. We've actually had 5 different programs in our conference that have qualified for the NCAA tournament in the last 3 years. Wow. So access to the tournament is there. But honestly, like one of the cool things that we talk about, so it's really good basketball. The competition is good. You get challenged every single night. We play 20 league games, which is a lot. And it's a battle every single night, which almost any coach that's going to be on here is going to say that about their conference. But one thing that's pretty cool, and it actually pertains to the academic piece as well, is we talk about how lucky we are that we're in a conference of convenience. And so we are not like the UAA schools are all, those are all essentially like high academic schools that are all in the same league from that standpoint. We, there are some good, very, very strong schools, academic schools in our league, but in general terms, our league is what we would call a conference of convenience. And it really works great for a high academic school like us where our furthest road trip in conference in league play is a little over 3.5 hours. And so we play 20 conference games. We play 10 at home, and then we have 16 games that are within an hour. And then the other 4 are 2 hours and then 3.5 hours. 3 that are 2 hours and one's 3.5 hours. So at a high academic school like ours, it's really neat to be able to balance that with the academics, and where we can, you're not necessarily on a bus for 8 hours or for a whole weekend, and it's nice to be able to, for the vast majority of our games where our guys they're back on campus by 10:30 at night. We have a big win. We go up and play St. Thomas and are fortunate enough to win, and we celebrate for the first probably 15-20 minutes of the bus ride home, and then you see the lights start to pop on the bus and the Wi-Fi, and guys are starting to kind of log on, and they're able to kind of be able to study a little bit. They get back to campus, they sleep in their own bed, we sleep in our own bed, and so it's really nice from that standpoint, just being able to have that conference of convenience that we have. And the other thing I'd say specific to our basketball is, again, I talk about our program and how we pride ourselves on the consistency that we've had within our league. And, we've 21 out of the last 26 years, we've qualified for our conference playoffs, which is basically the top half. So the top 6 teams in our league. And if you get in the conference playoffs, you got a shot at getting in the NCAA tournament, with possibly an at-large bid, but obviously the AQ, which is really nice. And so being in that top, that's one of our goals every year is to be in the playoffs. And we've been fortunate enough to do that for the vast majority of years, in the last 25, 26 years. Our roster is maybe a little bit different from some of the other schools in that we don't have a JV program. So our roster is 12, pretty much around 12 to 14 every year. I think this past year we were maybe at 11. I think this next year we'll be at like 13. So we're always kind of right in that mix. And so from a development standpoint, we talk about the reps that our guys get. We don't have 25 guys, that are fighting for those reps in practice. So our players develop, every year we see guys that get better and better. And by the time they're juniors and seniors, they really start to hit their strides. We've had in the last, I think in the last 15 years, we've had 14 of the last 15 years, we've had at least one representative from our team on the all first year team in our league. So that one of the top 5 freshmen in our league. And so, we need players that are good, that are talented, that can come in and play for us. We don't have a JV program where they can go and play and sit for 2 years and then come and play after that. So we recruit a lot of guys that can come and help us right away and have the opportunity to play from that standpoint too. So our style play is we've been fortunate to have a run of really good bigs in the last, going back, the last 15 years. And so we've been able to play through those guys a lot. And, we had a kid a couple years ago, Kevin Groh, who was a Jostens Award finalist. He was an honorable mention All-American. This past year, we had a kid, Kent Hansen, 6'5" forward, who again was honorable mention All-American, Jostens Award finalist. And then 3 years ago, we had a kid, Freddie Gillespie, who played for us he was on our team as a freshman, started for us as a sophomore, had a tremendous year for us, and actually ended up transferring to Baylor. And he redshirted at Baylor for a year, and then he started for them for 2 years. He was a 6th man of the year, and I think he was second team all Big 12 this past year. He's got a chance to get drafted he was with us, and he's a tremendous story, and being able to recruit Freddie and have Freddie in our program for 2 years was tremendous. And it's been, as much as we would have loved to have had him on our team, and our record would probably have been, not probably, would have been better the last 2 years with having him in the middle, would have been really neat. But at the same time, it's tremendous to see the success that he's had. And so we've been fortunate to have some really good players from that standpoint too, which has been great.
That's awesome. That's great, Coach. I'm going to toss it over to Scott. He'll have a couple more follow-ups for you.
Coach, not having a JV team and having, success in the recruiting trail, where do you guys find these players from across the country? Is it camps? Is it tournaments? Is it high school games?
Well, I almost wore my West Coast Elite shirt that I got. I think it was like 5 years ago at the camp in Chicago that you guys had, and
nice.
And that I still have and wear quite a bit. And so, no, I think like a lot of the schools, like we've, do we recruit nationally? Like we have kids from all over. We've drawn kids. Those events have been good for us, particularly in the Midwest. But again, we've had kids from the East Coast. In general terms, like we've had a lot of success with kids in the Midwest, the upper Midwest, Minnesota. That's always been kind of that's where we differentiate ourselves the most, just because academically, we are, don't like to use the term elite, but we're an elite academic school, particularly here. And so I think that appeals to a lot of kids and families from that standpoint. And there's a convenience factor from that too. But we have had kids from elsewhere too. Like I said, West Coast, East Coast, wherever. And I think, what I would say for each of those kids, and I know other coaches talk about fit a lot. And I think even from a basketball standpoint, but we look at fit, certainly basketball wise, but we want Carleton to be the right fit for kids too. And we want them to come here, and we want them to have a successful experience while they're at Carleton. And so there's various factors, as to why that's the case and what draws certain kids, to Carleton. Basketball is a big part of it. It might be the trimester, it might be the study abroad, it might be because we have a really good econ department, and our kids have an opportunity to go study abroad at Cambridge University, and that's really an appeal to them from that standpoint. There's a variety of factors from that standpoint, but in general terms, I'd say to answer your question, Scott, like it's kind of started, more locally and kind of in the regionally from that standpoint, but by all means, we don't differentiate, and we anybody that has really good academics, is interested in a high academic experience, and that Carleton is a fit for, is great. And we value that. We value that diversity within our program too. And I love having guys, players in our program from various different states and backgrounds and all those pieces too.
We have to get you back on our all academic circuit again. 5 years is way, way too long.
Absolutely.
Well, we're in Chicago next week too, 10th and 11th, which will be.
That's right. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make that, but it's always a great event.
Awesome. What skills that stand out at those camps? Is there anything special you look for when you're at these events?
Yeah. First is the academic piece. Like that's always going to be a part of it, and trying to, find, okay, the academic background of different players from that standpoint. But specific to the basketball component, I would say shooting is a premium, and we've, almost every coach is going to say that, Division I, Division II, Division III, NBA, high school, wherever. But for us specifically, we've had really good bigs, and as it pertains to our program right now, we have some really good interior players. We had the West Region Freshman of the Year this past year, kid Jeremy Beckler, who's got tremendous potential. He turned down multiple Division II opportunities to have the opportunity to come to study at Carleton and be at a school like Carleton has been great. And so with him, we can't have two guys hanging on him all the time. We need guys that can be able to space the floor and shoot it. So shooting is always a big thing. Passing, obviously, and specific in passing, what we kind of look at is, who can handle pressure in passing, who can pass, who can handle it, and who can read a secondary defender. Those are some of the specific skills that we look for from a passing standpoint. Who can defend, and these don't always go in that order per se, but being able to defend, and some of those other pieces are barometers. But in general terms, if you can shoot it and you can pass it, we'll teach you how to defend. I think most coaches would probably say that. We pride ourselves in we've always been one of the top defensive teams in our league and even nationally in a lot of different metrics that you want to use from that standpoint too. And then who can create their own shot, who can create, whether it's off the dribble or create from that standpoint too. All the intangibles that a lot of other coaches, who's playing hard, who's a good teammate, all those things. Those are obviously, I don't want to say those are givens, but those are expectations that we have from that standpoint too. So I mean, I hope that's a lot of what we're looking for as it pertains to the basketball piece, and then kind of the intangible piece too.
On the academic side, what does that look like for an academic profile prospective recruit?
Yeah, in the world of COVID, it's changing since, basically whatever 90% of, I guess it's maybe moving up a little bit now, but the vast majority of rising seniors and juniors haven't had the opportunity to take the ACT or SAT from that standpoint. And that's not even, those are barometers. Those numbers matter, but they're not the end all be all. Other coaches have probably mentioned this too, but, transcripts, GPA, there's a lot of variance in that. Just use the term of a 3.5, somebody who is really challenging themselves and taking really good rigor and is, their extracurriculars, they're taking, foreign languages, and all of those pieces, like those are always going to help from an admissions standpoint. The admissions process, at our schools is not, I don't want to say it's a moving target, but, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But, for us, again, high academics, strong test scores are good. And then obviously good rigor, in the classes. And that's what our admissions people are going to look for is how are students challenging themselves and how are they doing in those classes?
I mean, especially Carleton's the #1 undergraduate teaching university in the country, which I thought was really interesting because a lot of schools, they prioritize the graduate programs, but Carleton prioritizes the undergrads, which kind of sets you up for graduate school. So
yeah. And that's a great stat. Another really cool stat, the Brookings Institute, this is maybe 5 or 6 years ago, had come out and had looked at, basically like return on investment, which is obviously the big thing with a lot of our schools now. And basically, I think Carleton was second out of all colleges and universities in mid-career salary earnings. And so our graduates 10 years out of college were second of all colleges and universities. And basically what that says is that our students get into the workforce and they move forward quickly. They advance in their professions quickly. And that's a really neat thing. And the skills that they're able to acquire, the critical thinking, the all of those things that you acquire in all the different disciplines really are neat from that standpoint. And that's a pretty cool thing too, along with that, the undergrad and the emphasis on the undergrad and just the experience and how rigorous and how rewarding that experience is pretty neat.
And really taking those steps. My last question is, you played in the conference, now you're coaching in the conference. What are some of the best experiences you had as a player and a coach?
Yeah, it's really cool. Like for us, I would say I've been fortunate to play. So I played at St. Olaf College and now coaching at Carleton. Those are two rival schools. They're in the same town. We're both in this town of Northfield. We're separated by, essentially less than 2 miles. There's a river, the Cannon River, the mighty Cannon in town that separates the schools. We play for a GOAT trophy, which is this old trophy. It was built, it's been refurbished, but the rivalry started in I think 1918 was the first year. And so, it's in our town and, we have some crossover with recruitment too. And a lot of kids will look at both schools. So to be able to play, to have the opportunity to go to a small Division III school and to play in those games is tremendous. To coach in those games is tremendous. I've enjoyed that. Any of the big games, being in the conference championship game, all those things, like those are fun experiences. We've been fortunate enough to we had a game, I think 4 years ago, we were at St. Thomas, we were down 15 with like 9 minutes to go and we won on a buzzer beater. Like that was pretty cool. That was the year after they had won the national championship. And, any of those experiences are pretty neat. And to be able to share that with the student athletes is tremendous.
I like that you played at the rival and you're coaching at the other school. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I still have some relationships on the other side. No, it's great. Like it's a really neat experience. Both schools are great. I have positive things to say about both, but I really have enjoyed my experience at Carleton. It's been tremendous.
I love it.
Coach, you've been at Carleton for a while, and like Scotty said, you've been in the league for a while. What is some advice that you might give a kid or people that are going to watch, that are either watching it now or going to watch on YouTube later, during kind of all the stuff that's going on in our country right now, and not being able to get out and really be seen the way that they would hope? What's some advice that you could give for kids to, how can they stay on your radar, but also how can they kind of stay persistent and stick to what they got to do to make it at the next level?
Well, first thing I'll say is what you guys are doing and what you have been doing with this series is tremendous. I'm old enough to where when I was, a senior in high school and going through like the internet, everything was paper application. The thought of like being on a Zoom call and to have 3 different coaches be able to come for 30 minutes and talk about their school and their program is really a tremendous opportunity. And so there's obviously a lot of information that's out there and that's accessible. And I think I think for students now, that's a lot more valuable than even for me going through the process, basically 20 years ago. But what I would say, probably the best advice I think that I could offer as it pertains to kind of the recruitment piece is go through and, figure out like what the things, what values do you have? What are the things that you value most in your experience? And prioritize those. And then find the schools that you think are going to fit in those. So it could be academics, it could be location, it could be basketball, it could be playing time, it could be successful program, it could be relationship with a coach, it could be myriad of different things, right? Prioritize what those are, what your values are from that standpoint. And again, go through and learn. Like, this is great to be able to have the opportunity. How much is your time worth? Is it worth sitting on a call for 30 minutes or an hour and a half to learn about 3 different programs? Yes, it is. And then see if those programs, feel free. Like other coaches have said, it happens all the time, especially now during COVID, where, we've had a lot of student athletes that have reached out to us. We always do every year, but even with us being not able to be actively involved in the recruitment on the road and being at events and being at your events, don't be afraid to do that. Use your resources well. Use your coaches in your program. Use, Coach Martin, Coach Elkin, and have them facilitate as you and your family to find the schools that you think might be the best fit for you, and get in touch and just learn as much as you can about that program. And we always say, like, the fit thing is huge. I think we want students to come to Carleton. We want basketball players to come to Carleton. They're going to have a good experience. And if I recruit somebody and they come and they're like, whoa, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be, like, I have some ownership in that too. And so we want those students to have a good experience. And we tell, a lot of our incoming students, our first year athletes, listen, like, during the recruitment process, I'm going to tell you that Carleton is like the greatest school in the world. And I believe that to a large degree, but I'm also going to tell you that not every day is going to be a Disneyland day. There's going to be challenges that come along the way, and you just have to prepare yourself for some of those. And just like every basketball game is not going to go the way you want to go, every class, every test, whatever it is from that standpoint too. So, but try to find the best fit and try to find the factors, hone in on the factors that are important to you, and then identify the schools that you might think from that standpoint and go from there.
It's amazing advice. Yeah, really, really good stuff there, Coach. Well, we're wrapping things up here. Is there anything else that we didn't get a chance to talk about, or anything you wanted to kind of touch on as we wrap things up for the evening?
No, I appreciate you guys, the opportunity that you've given me to talk about Carleton, the other coaches, and I appreciate what you guys are doing and what your organization is doing to help, all the student athletes try to find the best fit. And this is a tremendous thing for you guys to offer this to not only your West Coast elite student athletes that are playing in your program, but other kids that are interested in looking at different schools and parents from that standpoint too. It's really a neat thing.
Well, we really appreciate you being on, and like you said, you guys have players from all over the country, and on this call tonight, and when people are watching back this tape, I know there's going to be people from all over the country that are tuning in and listening to kind of what you had to say. So I'm glad that we were able to get you on tonight, Coach, and hopefully next time, whether we're in the Midwest or East Coast or West Coast, wherever it is, whenever we get back in the gym, we'd love to see you there. And in the meantime, please stay safe, be well. Really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight and hope to see you soon.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Have a good
Thanks,
night, Coach.
Coach.
Take care.